Jeffrey Epstein was not powerful, influential, or wealthy, and that fact alone is what makes his story unsettling because nothing about his origins explains where he ended up or who chose to open doors for this guy. Born in Brooklyn, 1953, Epstein came from a lower middle class Jewish family, attended public school, briefly studied mathematics, and never completed a college degree. Yet, by his early 30s, he had access to elite financial circles that normally take generations to penetrate. He began as a teacher at the Dalton School in Manhattan, an elite private institution where he taught despite lacking formal qualifications, and it was there that he first encountered the children of Wall Street executives, proximity that would later define his entire trajectory. From Dalton, Epstein moved into finance under circumstances that remains partially unexplained, working at Bear Stearns in the late 1970s, where he quickly rose despite violating internal policies, and when he left, he did not fade out, but he emerged as independent, wealthy, and opaque. By the 1990s, Epstein claimed to manage billions for a tiny group of ultra-rich clients whose names he refused to disclose, a claim that financial investigators later struggled to verify because no clear paper trail ever matched the lifestyle this guy maintained. That lifestyle included multiple residences, a Manhattan mansion valued at over $70 million, a private island in the US, Virgin Islands, called Little St. James, properties in Palm Beach, Paris, New Mexico, and a fleet of aircraft, including the now infamous Boeing 727, nicknamed by staff and victims as the Lolita Express. Flight logs from that aircraft, later released through court proceedings, documented repeated travel involving politicians, royalty, academics, and business leaders across the United States, the Caribbean, Europe, and the Middle East. And this is where the files begin to matter. The Epstein files are not a single document, they are a collection of flight logs, address books, email records, financial transfers, court exhibits, sworn depositions, victim testimonies, sealed exhibits, and internal memos obtained through civil litigation, criminal investigations, and journalistic inquiries spanning more than over 20 years. One of the earliest and most damaging was Epstein's Black Book, seized during the investigations, containing hundreds of contacts across US, UK, France, Israel, Arabia, and Eastern Europe, listing phone numbers and addresses of presidents, prime ministers, intelligence-linked figures, celebrities, and billionaires. Well, it is critical to state clearly appearing in a contact book or a flight log does not prove criminal conduct, but it does establish proximity, access, and repeated interactions. And proximity is the one thing Epstein monetized better than anyone. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Epstein had established a recruitment pipeline primarily in Florida and later in the Caribbean, targeting underage girls, many from economically vulnerable backgrounds, promising money, educations, or connections, and then drawing them into a system of abuse that multiple victims independently described in strikingly similar terms. While these accounts were not anonymous rumors, they were sworn statements given to law enforcement, journalists, and courts. In 2005, Palm Beach police opened an investigation after a victim's parents reported abuse. Detectives later documented dozens of victims, corroborated by phone records, financial transactions, and witness testimonies. The case reached federal prosecutors, and then something extraordinary happened. In 2008, Epstein received a non-prosecution agreement brokered by U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, granting Epstein immunity from federal charges and extending protection to unnamed potential co-conspirators, a clause so unusual that it later became a focal point of national outrage. He served 13 months in a county jail, was allowed to leave 6 days a week for work release, and was required to register as a sex offender, a punishment so disproportionate to the allegations that it permanently damaged public trust in elite accountability. For nearly a decade after that deal, Epstein rebuilt his life quietly, maintained his properties, continued traveling internationally, and remained socially connected to influential circles, including individuals later revealed through civil cases involving Virginia Giuffre and other victims. Those civil cases exposed further details: alleged abuse on private islands in New Mexico, on aircraft, and within Epstein's Manhattan residence, with claims involving individuals connected to governments in the United States and the United Kingdom. Again, courts were careful. Many names were redacted. Some were never charged. Others denied the allegations. But the pattern: recruitment, transportation, isolation, abuse, silence remained consistent. In 2019, federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York arrested Epstein on sex trafficking charges, this time without immunity, and for the first time, the full weight of the federal system appeared to close in. Epstein was denied bail and held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. Less than a month later, he was dead. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but the circumstances immediately raised alarms: malfunctioning cameras, guards who failed to perform required checks, previous reports that Epstein had been removed from suicide watch, and a facility already known for severe operational failures. Multiple autopsies, conflicting expert opinions, and sealed internal investigations followed, but no criminal accountability extended beyond administrative discipline. Epstein was gone. The trial never happened, and without a trial, there was no cross examination, no discovery phase, no forced testimony from associates, no public accounting. The system closed the book but left the pages loose. In the years that followed, civil litigation continued, settlements were paid, documents were unsealed in stages, and new waves of files were released, reigniting public scrutiny. Some reputations collapsed, others remained untouched. The most striking outcome of the Epstein saga is not the abuse itself, horrific as it was, but the asymmetry of consequences. Victims named their experiences publicly, while many powerful figures retained wealth, status, and influence without ever facing a courtroom. Jeffrey Epstein did not build a criminal empire alone, but neither was he a cinematic puppet master. He was a connector, a man who understood that access is currency, silence is leverage, and institutions often protect stability over truth. The files do not prove a single unified conspiracy, they prove something more disturbing: that elite systems across countries and industries repeatedly failed, deferred, or declined to fully confront what was in front of them, and that is why his name continues to surface. Not because he is mysterious, but because the story ended where accountability should have begun.